But I do think preparation is more important. Like if you're not prepared, it doesn't really matter what timing you have with someone or opportunity that comes up. If you're not prepared for it, it's not going to work.
Welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast, a free resource for women who work in the sports and entertainment industry. Each week, we get real and talk about the things that hold us back and how we can overcome them and keep climbing to the top. And the top is however you define it. We talk about the highs, the lows, and everything in between. Consider this podcast your secret weapon. You will learn from the best in the business and be able to take immediate action with all of the advice that you hear. I'm your host, Jahaan Blake, a leadership development coach and consultant. I've worked in sports for 20 years. 15 of those years were spent working for the Red Sox, Dodgers, and the Cubs. After 15 years of working in the front office, I took a leap of faith and I started my own business. Friends, as a Black woman in sports, I know that the industry can take a toll on your confidence and sometimes leave you feeling defeated. Join me each week so I can support you on your journey. I promise you, each week you will feel stronger and more confident than the week before. So let's get started with this week's episode. We are back. This is the first episode of the new year. I am so excited for the conversation you were about to listen into. I've known Nina Beltre since 2007 when she first started her career in sports as a Fenway Ambassador for the Boston Red Sox. Fast forward 16 years, and her journey has been filled with incredible experiences, including MLB, NFL, working with big name athletes and sports agencies. Nina's path has led her to her current role as Associate Sports Marketing Manager for baseball for New Balance Athletics. Listen in as Nina and I talk about how working for the Super Bowl gave her the courage to make moves in her career, how she bounced back from failure, why she removed the word luck from her vocabulary, how she handled being embarrassed after a big event failed very publicly, and what it was like to get into sports being a woman of color. All right, Game of Her Own listeners, it is time. Let's do this. Nina,
Hello.
welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast. I am so happy you're here.
Thanks. I'm really excited to be here.
We have so much history, so much to talk about. You have an incredible career and you are so young, which I don't feel like age matters anymore, but still, like you've accomplished a lot in the time that you have started working. Tell everybody, before we get started, tell everybody when you first fell in love with sports.
When I first fell in love with sports, I would have to say I was probably like 6 or 7, and it came from my grandfather. So my family's from the Dominican Republic. I'm first generation American. My parents were both born in the Dominican Republic. So baseball is huge there culturally. And my grandfather spent all his days essentially watching Braves games and Yankees games, because back then that's kind of what was really broadcast. And he was a Yankees fan. So that was my time with my grandfather, and he was one of my favorite people. That's kind of how we bonded, was through baseball. Yeah.
That's so sweet. I love
Yeah.
that story. So sports was always your, like, it's been ingrained in your, it's like part of who you are. It's part of your DNA.
Yes.
So did you ever think, okay, I love sports. Apparently I have to get a real job after college to make money to survive
Right. Right.
and do something. So did you ever think you could work in sports?
Never. Like it literally never crossed my mind. Like it wasn't anywhere near my radar. When I was in college, originally I wanted to work in merchandising, fashion merchandising. So that's what I started like my schooling in. And I went to Fisher College in Boston because I wasn't ready to leave the state. And there were only at the time like 2 colleges that offered fashion degrees on a real level. And I wanted to be either in visual merchandising or be a buyer. Took a couple internships, hated it. I was like, this is not for me. So the way it worked was you had to fulfill an associate's degree before you could switch to a major in business. So I did that. And then honestly, it was like almost like fate, if people believe in that, where I was in school and I was talking to my registrar, going through like classes and how to change my major, when he was like, hey, we got this like job posting through the Red Sox for like part-time work. They're like, have this cool Fenway Ambassador program. And I think your personality would be awesome. Like, you know, you, if you want to give it a go. So that's kind of the first look that I got into like, oh, wait, women can work in sports. This is interesting. And that's kind of how I realized it. But it was like not even anywhere near my radar at all.
That's so funny. So this job posting went to Fisher College.
Yep.
And that's how you learned, oh, I can work in sports and not just isn't the right word, and not be an usher, right? There's nothing wrong with being an usher.
Exactly.
But like I can do part-time work, still go to college, but be involved in a front office setting and get paid for it. Mind you, it wasn't a lot, and get paid for it and get front office experience.
Yeah.
And then you went for it. Tell everybody what that looks like.
Give them, oh my gosh. Yeah. That was probably the most intense process I've ever been through.
What year were you in college?
I started with the Red Sox in 2007. So this process started in 2006. It was also the coolest thing because I had never gone through an interview process like this. But the first round was we came in, no resumes, no name tags. And we were in what was the EMC club at that point, and all you had was a number. Like it was like a little sticker instead of my name is, and it was like a number. And you were in a room with what seemed like at least 100 people. And the Red Sox, which now I know you were part of, had like decoy people in the room where you didn't know were Red Sox employees. And it was more to see like how you interacted with people and get more of like your personality and your vibe and who you were versus just kind of like what you can list on a resume, which I thought was really cool. And then it kind of went off of, from my understanding, depending on how many people wrote down your number, of like being more interested to get to know you on a different level, you got to call back then for an actual interview. And then that process went, I think I did 2 rounds of interviews because I interviewed with a few managers and ambassadors. And it was like, for me at that age, I think I was like maybe 20 at the time, 19. It was kind of intimidating because it was like in a conference room. And it was the first time also, I should backtrack, that I had been inside the Red Sox front offices. Like I didn't even know that that's where the offices were. Like you walk into the stadium and you have no idea that behind these secret doors and passageways, there's an office building. Like, so I thought that was cool. But I walked into a conference room that overlooked the field at Fenway. So right there, I was like, oh my gosh, like what is this? It was like Harold Angel singing, and I was like, whoa, where am I? But it was a whole panel of people. And then I'm sitting on one end of the table, and it was a huge, like long conference table. So I was like, wow, this is intense. The cool thing was everybody made me feel really comfortable. It wasn't intimidating once I like sat down and got talking to people, but did that interview. And then if you passed that round, you then had a one-on-one with Dr. Charles Steinberg, who I'm sure some people already know, but I feel like
I talk about him a lot. It's really funny.
I feel like he's the unofficial godfather of baseball almost. Like, especially in Boston. So then if you got through Charles, then we did a series of events just to kind of see how we could work in real time. And then a few months later, you get a call whether you made the team or not. And I think for my class in 2007, I think it was like about 25 ambassadors that were hired. It was like a pretty big class because I think it was the second time that the Red Sox had done such a big group other than the initial 04 Dream Team.
Yes, we were a dream team in 04.
You guys were.
Okay. So what I love about this story, and I don't know if I've heard this before, like how you got the job posting, but what I loved about working for the Red Sox was that before everybody and their mother was talking about diversity, right? And right, I mean, I guess we didn't have Instagram and to this extent we have it now, and all the social medias to the extent that we have it now. But it was a big deal, and that was something that leadership kept pushing. Like, let's make sure that we are diverse in our hiring practices. Let's make sure that we're talking to everybody in Boston, just not, BU and BC, like, right? Boston University and Boston College, for those of you who aren't from Boston and used to hearing that. But it was a big deal. So I remember it was part of my job and other people, but I was like, I'm going to find all the places we can send this job posting. Like,
Yeah.
where can we find? And I remember I had not heard of Fisher College, but I
Yeah.
remember finding it. I was like, look at this. Like, we came up with a list of places and Fisher College was on it. And I think Fisher College had a lot of people go to like the final round. Like, you guys,
Yes,
like, I remember being
we
so
did. Yeah.
proud. Like I had to separate it. I was like, we have to hire people because they're good, not because you found Fisher. Like, you know what I mean? Like, not because
Yeah.
you reached out to Fisher College. This has nothing to do with you, Jahaan. But I remember being so excited, one, that it was passed down from leadership, go do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it makes a huge difference, because while yes, I am a Black woman, we're so busy, and sometimes you forget, like, hey, let's just not go to the major colleges. Hey, Boston's a really white town. You have to put in some work to make sure that there's diversity, and not even, okay, yes, it's a very white town, but also just like diversity in age and sex, and like, how do you make sure that like you're reaching everybody and not moving so quickly, because we had 5,000 projects going on at once all of the time, and you always
I don't know
like
how you guys did that.
Yeah, you felt like you're always like lit on fire. I remember one time I said to my boss then, I said, can we just focus on one thing? And that did not go over well.
Did they laugh at you? I was going to say they either laughed at you or were like, you may need to rethink
laugh and also told people what I said in front of me. Like, so she was like talking about me behind my back, but like right in front of my face. And I was like, but, and so like, that was a lesson in how to articulate what I meant. Like, cause I just kind of talked to her as a friend, like, can we slow down? And like, you can't just say that to your boss. You got to talk about the why and have that business case. But that was a lesson learned, but we move so quickly. And I guess my point is, and I'll wrap it up and I'm going to get into your story. My point is that we move so quickly, we forget that, hey, you got to slow down, and you have to put in a lot of, it's hard work to be inclusive.
It is hard. And I think
and
a lot
change
of
the way you do things.
And I agree to your point. Like, I think the Red Sox back then, before it was kind of like a thing and on everyone's radar about DE&I, that they did a really good job in like trying to diversify. And I think honestly, the department that we worked in the time also kind of went above and beyond even what the organization wanted, to make sure that, you know, if we couldn't find candidates everywhere, at least like within that department, it was like top priority, which I thought was amazing. But I think a lot of what makes it hard, and I think you make a great point in saying sometimes we need to like slow down and pay attention to some of the smaller things when trying to handle this initiative, is also for myself as like a minority, the importance of knowing and seeing yourself in places is very important, because we aren't as, how do I say, as likely maybe, or as, trying to find the right like power word, but we don't necessarily go for things, let's say, as much as others do. Like, you know, even like you said, like white people are kind of like raised in like, you can do anything and, you know, reach for this. No one is above you. And I think sometimes minorities we're a little more accustomed to and used to like, you can get by and you're great at this. And we'll have the support of like, you're amazing, you can do anything. But it's tough to see, like in my family, since I'm first generation, like a lot of my family worked in factories and mills and, you know, didn't have that like front office Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and certain luxuries that we think, quote unquote, come with that. So I think sometimes it's harder to go for those opportunities, even though you're qualified.
You know, that's so interesting. So for you, it was, I'm going to go after this ambassador job. And when I get there, I'm going to put my head down. Correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm going to put my head down, do my job. You know, I'm a part-time ambassador, still in college, or, you know, almost ready to graduate. I'm not going to go for the you know, the big thing. I'm not going to do what a Theo Epstein did and become a GM at 27. Like we don't do that, meaning women of color, right? Like I'm going to get my job and then maybe I'll be full-time. And then maybe, so it's almost like you respect the hierarchy to your own detriment. If that makes sense.
It makes total sense. Like, because even after, like you kind of said it, like even after I got the role as an ambassador, I was like, I know I can do good work. I know I have good work ethic, but I'm going to keep my head down, do what I was hired to do. I didn't even really at the time, and now I know it's super important, I didn't really reach out to people to see how they got to where they were. Like even you were my manager at the
Mhm.
time. And,
Mhm.
I don't ever recall a time sitting down with you, even though I thought what you did was amazing, sitting down and being like, hey, Jahaan, do you have a second? Like, can we talk about your path or where you want to go? And I didn't do a lot of that, where I think some of my like coworkers were maybe doing that, trying to build these relationships. I built good relationships, but were more like personal for like friendship and things like that. I never
Sure.
really married the two on like having
Mhm.
that, friendly relationship, but also like a professional one on like a mentor status.
Mhm.
And I just kind of respected that hierarchy. Like you said, I didn't, even after working there part time, it took me a couple of years being there that I was like, wait a second, I'm really good at this and I can do this on a full time level, on like a deeper level as well. So it took me a while to like even recognize that in myself.
Say more. Like what happened there? Like when did that like sort of light bulb go off that like, oh, I'm good and I could be here full time?
Honestly, I think it was a combination of two things, because once I graduated college, I was still at the Red Sox as an ambassador part time.
Mhm.
But because it wasn't in my head that I could do it full time, I went and took another full time job once I graduated college. And it was not in anything that I loved doing. It was just kind of like, I have student loans kicking in 6 months. I need to figure out my next step. But I found myself still constantly putting in more and more time with the Red Sox. And I was like, I think this is something that I might really want to do. So the first step I did was I went to my manager at the time, who was Stephanie Menegas. She's amazing. Stephanie Menegas Greg, who's
Yeah.
amazing. And
Yeah.
you've had on your podcast, and, she had an incredible episode as well.
Yes. And I'll link to that in the show notes for everybody who wants to listen to it once you're finished with Nina's episode.
Yeah, she was great. And she, I think, noticed a little bit in me too with like my drive and work. And I asked for more responsibility as an ambassador. And I think that's kind of how it started. And I think I was putting out really good work. And then at one point, I finally advocated for myself. And it was just kind of like, hey, Steph, I really want to turn this into like a full time role. What do I need to do? What steps do I need to take? And at the time, there wasn't anything open, but I kind of put out there that that's what I wanted for myself. She gave me like a little bit of a game plan of like, well, this is what you should do. This is kind of what we're looking for. And then in 2013, it ended up turning into a full time gig. End of
Mm.
2012, I started January of 2013.
You've gone through 3 World Series?
Yep, 7, 13, and 18. Yes.
Okay, so I just want to plug that in for you right there for everybody to hear. Okay, so you went to Stephanie and you said, I want to do more. Was
Yes.
that hard for you to do?
Yeah, it was. It was the first time I'd ever kind of had that like moment to myself. And I also didn't really know how to approach it, because I didn't know how it would be perceived, because I didn't really have experience in that yet. So I was a little nervous. I also was dealing with, and I still to this day have to catch myself, we all deal with like that imposter syndrome. Like I like prepared myself. I made a list for myself. I didn't share it, of what I'm really good at. I was realistic with what some of my areas of weaknesses are and like places I can improve, and came up with like how I could improve on those, and like where I was kind of already working on some of them. And I kind of used that in my conversation with Steph back in the day. I think the conversation I had with her was back in like 2010. And I also took a big risk. I was just not happy. I had been at my job, my previous job, my full time job for 3 years, and I wasn't happy. And I made a change. And at the end of 2010, I quit. And I was like, I saved up a good amount of money. I'm luckily decent financially with like saving and like goals. So I think halfway through 2010, I was kind of like, I'm not happy here. Let me start saving just in case something happens.
Mhm.
I had a really good manager. I was very lucky. I had a good manager at the time at that company, who is still a mentor. And she kind of helped me plan it out as well, to where she was like, I agree with you. It was a small family owned company. I couldn't really go too far there. And I had kind of reached my ceiling already in the 3 years that I had been there. So she was kind of helping me build a resume and kind of do all of the things I needed to do to help me move on to bigger, better, greener pastures, for lack of a better word. So that's kind of how it all transpired. And in 2010, I quit. And I said to Steph at that point, I was like, I am free, available, and open for as many hours as you can give me, as much as opportunities you can give me. I think I can bring A, B, and C. I can improve in 1, 2, 3. How can you use me? What do we need to do? And it kind of went that. And I did 2 full seasons part time, just putting in as much work as I could before I was full time in 13.
So you came to your manager, Stephanie, with like, here I am. I'm ready to go. For you, for your financial safety, security, you had
Mm-hmm.
savings, right? You
Yes.
you
Yes.
you could go and try to pursue what you wanted to pursue. You had financial security because you planned ahead.
Mm-hmm.
You had the privilege of being on your parents' insurance, which
Yeah.
is a huge bonus. And then you
I
went
was
to
still living
step.
at home, which
Oh, even
helped.
better. I always told
Yeah.
if my parents lived in Boston, they were in New Jersey at the time. I was like, if you lived in Boston, I don't understand why people don't live at home. Like I would
Yeah.
100%
Yeah.
live at home. I would
I
have
was still
saved
living at home.
so much money.
Yeah.
Okay. So you lived at home, but then you went to your manager and said, hey, I'm free. I want to work. I'm available. Here's the value I can bring. And
Mm-hmm.
here are the areas where I know that I could use some work in development and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to work on them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think? That's so like you just kind of went in with a good plan.
I did. I was lucky. I mean, I shouldn't call it luck. I was prepared. I'm
Yep.
trying to take luck out of my vocabulary a little bit more because
Mm-hmm.
I'm realizing timing is important. And I think that's what we mistake for luck sometimes. But I do think preparation is more important. Like if you're not prepared, it doesn't really matter what timing you have with someone or opportunity that comes up. If you're not prepared for it, it's not going to work. So I'm trying
Yeah.
a little bit like I know there's luck and I think I don't want for people that are into like that terminology, but I'm trying as far as professionally trying to give myself more credit.
Yes. I love that. You
Yeah.
should.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
thank you.
mean,
It's a work in progress.
aren't we all? Some of the toughest conversations we have are the ones that we have with ourselves. We can convince ourselves to believe stories that we don't even know are true. What's crazy is we allow that story to take a toll on our confidence. Have you been there before? I know that I have. We get in our heads, we beat ourselves up. Here's some tough love. Nobody's got time for that. We are high achieving women who have big career goals. We don't have time to get in our own way. And I am here to support you with my new one on one coaching program, Step into Your Power and Own Your Career. My clients have told me that when we work together, I've helped them get out of their own way, regain their confidence, learn how to manage their emotion and mindset. They've told me that they've been able to get their voice back and use it with confidence. The most important thing, they've told me that we've identified the obstacle that was getting in their way. If you want to learn more about this program, scroll down in the show notes, click on the link that says Step into Your Power and Own Your Career. You can set up time to chat with me and we can figure out if this is the right program for what you need. All right, let's get back to the episode. So tell everybody what you do now and who you do it for.
I'm coming up on just about a year. So December of 2021, I started with New Balance Athletics, and I'm the Associate Sports Marketing Manager for their baseball department. So basically, in a nutshell, what that is myself and two other colleagues are in charge of our baseball roster, both minor league and major league players. So we are in charge of the marketing and apparel and goods of any player that's contracted through MLB. So, through New Balance, actually. So we have a decent roster of athletes and we take care of everything from their on-field gear and apparel. So any guy that you see on a field wearing New Balance, for the most part, off the field, lifestyle type apparel and things like that. And then we also are in charge of athlete relations as far as like marketing campaigns and commercials and ads and photo shoots and things like that. And then we also help with their charitable component. A lot of our players have a charitable component written into their contracts. So we help coordinate how they want to spend that allotted money.
What a great role for you. And that's right. And I know you personally, so like I can really like speak to like, your professional relationship with athletes and how you work really well with them and really just anybody who's in the spotlight. I just remember, was it Mark Anthony when at Super Bowl? Like you handled it very well. And the unfortunate situation was the person who was working for us did not handle it very well, but that's a whole other story. Sure. But you've always been really, really good with athletes and people who are, let's just call them what they are, celebrities, right? And your job is much bigger than that. But at the core of it, right? Like at the core of it, you have athletes that are representing your brand. But how did you make that jump? Sometimes it's scary to go from, okay, I know everything about the Red Sox. I know what's going on. I know how to, you know what I mean? Like, I know how it works here. I know where my place is here. And sometimes comfort keeps people from making a jump, because why mess with something that's
100%.
working really well, especially to what you said earlier, right? Like, you get in, you put your head down and you do your work. You weren't raised to be a risk taker, if I understand your background, right? So like, how did you talk about that jump and how you made that?
Like you said, it was hard, especially because the transition within the Red Sox just felt a little more natural and easy because I started part-time. So you don't think of it as like the safety net yet. So you start part-time and then you move on full-time. But like you said, it's all I knew, basically, like a truly professional level. But I think one of the things that really helped me get out of that comfort zone, and I feel like I'm name dropping on your podcast here, was sorry, I call her Dunna, because I always forget that her name's Meg Madden, who you also had.
Yes, I call her Donna too when she won't respond to me, like when I'm yelling her name. That's the only thing that'll get her to respond. So you guys, she's going to talk about Meg Madden, who was episode number 3 on the podcast. Also a really good, I mean, all the episodes are good, but I'll link to it in the show notes so you can listen to it. But go ahead. You can call her Donna for this.
Okay, perfect. Because otherwise I'm going to be like stumbling. I'm like, wait, what's her name again? No, but Donna reached out, and she was still currently working for Party Planners West, which is a company that hires freelancers to help with like Super Bowl and other events. And just given my experience with the Red Sox and helping put on events there as well, reached out and asked if we would be interested. And I think doing something like that was so different for a sport that I had never really worked in, and putting on events and these entry plazas and game day fan plazas, I think just took a lot of different aspects of event planning and sports and relationship management that I had never really had to do or face, helped kind of me realize, oh, okay, I have skills outside of just what's required of me in baseball and with the Red Sox specifically. And I think the challenges I faced with that also helped me grow professionally. So I credit a lot of my ability to even feel comfortable and secure enough to, and confident enough to apply for this job with New Balance, with a lot of the work I put in through Party Planners West.
Isn't that so interesting?
Right?
Working for Meg when she reached out, and sorry, this podcast is about you, but we're going into me for a second too.
Yeah, of course.
When Meg reached out about, me helping her for Super Bowl, when I had that first experience, I was like, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I just knew that, I love Meg. She's like a sister. So yeah, why not? I'll do this, take some time off work. I was still with the Cubs at the time, take some time off work and do it. And I just remember being like, oh, this is the lifestyle I want. I don't fit into this 9 to 5, and baseball is not 9 to 5, but you know what I mean? I don't fit into this structure of like, be here every single day. And it just didn't fit in. And I just loved all of the people I met there. And I didn't know there was a lifestyle of contractors and freelancers. And some people had their own business, but took on contracts. I was like, this is what it like changed the trajectory of my career as well. So I feel like you and I might want to take Meg out for drinks. Like this is like,
forever.
And I don't think it ever I think I forgot about that pivotal moment in my career and how much confidence it gave me as well. Yeah. And Super Bowl's not easy.
My gosh. No, it's probably the hardest thing I've done, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's easily the hardest thing I've done. And it is cool because you look back and you're like, whoa, we did this. Like you watch this entire production after the fact. I will say, and Meg knows this, there are days where you're like, what am I doing? These days are so hard. Why did I do this? And then you fast forward and you've done it now like 8 years. You're like, oh, here we are again.
Yeah.
Because you get to look back and you have something that you're really proud of. But that role gets you out of your comfort zone in ways that you didn't even realize you had. Like, it's like when you do these workouts like Pilates and you find these muscles that you didn't even know existed. Like, I feel like Party Planners West is that like analogy. Like you find these skills that you didn't realize you had.
Yeah. Like it was so well said. And I mean, at the end of the day, I think the key thing you said there was comfort zone and getting out of your comfort zone and not even realizing you were going to get kicked out of your comfort zone. Because I didn't know I was going to get kicked out of my comfort zone at Super Bowl each year either. Like, you know what I mean? Like you and I partnered one year and it was just like each year kicks your butt. And what I love about working for Meg is that she set the expectation like early on. So I don't know if she said this to you, but for me, she's like, I'm glad you're on board. I just need to tell you, this is going to be the best couple of weeks of your life. And at the same time, the worst couple of weeks of your life. And you're like, okay,
Okay. Yeah.
Now I understand.
I
Like,
can prepare myself. Yes.
Exactly. And I always
Until you
talk
prepare yourself
to,
when you're not prepared.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, exactly. 100%. I always talk to like my coaching clients about when you're managing people, you have to set expectations, right? And
Yes.
there was more of a
Yes.
list of expectations, but like that was a huge
That's
one.
huge. Mm-hmm.
So I understood what I was stepping into before I signed the contract, right? Like
Yep.
I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, now I understand. And for those of you who are listening who feel like, I don't know what's next, or I'm bored, or I'm just comfortable where I am. And like for me, I don't like maintaining programs. At that time at the Cubs, that's where I was maintaining programs.
Mm-hmm.
Go do something different. Contract work is bigger than ever nowadays,
Yes. Yes.
or if it's even volunteering, right? Just doing
Mm-hmm.
something different that takes you out of your comfort zone and almost like wakes you up,
Yeah. 100%.
right? I feel like that's
100%.
what it did for both of us.
Yep. I 100% agree with that.
So on your briefing sheet, I see that your superpower is mind reading. What?
Yeah.
Now, so for
So
context, it
I
says
equate,
influencing my environment and mind reading. But like,
yeah.
just say more about that.
I think I have really high emotional intelligence. So when I say mind reading, it's obviously not literal, but I think I have a good knack for anticipating people's needs, and like when I manage people and helping to try to like be more empathetic to what they're going through and kind of just checking in, even when like we know that people smile through a lot. And I think, again, attributing it to some of the Super Bowl stuff, like when I worked with big teams and it was like very fast paced and very fast moving sometimes, I think it's just more of like trying to anticipate what people will need to help them work to their full potential. And I think that's where the mind reading kind of came in. I think it's just more of like the leadership and being able to decipher what will help someone perform better before they have to tell me.
Yeah. I felt that when we worked together in Super Bowl.
Thank you.
We worked on, so I know a lot of you guys have heard me talk about wayfinding and what I do. And one year, Nina was assigned to wayfinding. It was great. Mm-hmm. And she joined the team. And you like anticipated my needs. I would
I tried to.
Yeah, I would just be like standing there and you're like, JB, if I go do this, would that be helpful? Oh, how did you know I was going to say that? Yes, you were very good at that. Okay. Sorry, I totally got off track. I saw the mind reading and I was like,
yeah, no, that's what I mean by that. Yeah.
Like, can you tell me the future? You've had you're having such a great career, right? Red Sox, going after what you want, advocating for yourself, growing within that company, then moving over to New Balance, doing incredible work there. I always like to say this on this podcast because just like Instagram, it's easy to just only hear people's highlight reel and think, wow, they're doing great. I've made X mistake. I failed here. I've done this. So I'm not even on track yet to do what they do. Do you have like a favorite failure, or have you suffered a failure and like bounced back?
Yeah, I think I've had my fair share of failures. I think failures help us be better, not necessarily. It's always in hindsight. Because while it's happening, it's just the end of the world. But it's helpful to talk to people and have someone say and help you look back at the career you've had, because sometimes to this day, I have certain times where I'm like, oh, I'm not where I want to be. And sometimes I don't even know why, and I don't know if, like you said, I don't know if it's like societal norms where you're like, I'm X age and I've only done this, instead of looking at I'm X age and I've done this. So I think for me,
that was awesome. Say that one more time.
Yeah. So I think instead of us, we're so programmed to be I'm X age and I have only gotten to this, instead of saying I'm this age and I've already done all of this and I've gotten to these places. We're so conditioned. And I think as women more so to feel like personally and professionally, like you have to be at certain stages at very specific moments in life. And I think we're not doing ourselves any favors. And I sometimes think that's where I have felt some of my biggest failures have been, is when I'm in a situation where I have felt like I'm not where I need to be. I haven't done enough to get to this place, or we compare ourselves too much to other people. And I think sometimes social media, while it's great for certain things, is bad for others. But I think if I wanted to get specific, I'm trying to think of what I would consider like my biggest failure, just in the hopes that it helps one person. But okay, I think one year for me, I'll go back to one of my times at the Red Sox. And when the Red Sox do a big fan fest called Winter Weekend. And at the time we were holding it at Foxwoods, which is a resort and casino in Connecticut. And it was a huge undertaking for the organization, you know, as a whole. But the department I was working in fan service entertainment kind of organized and executed most of it and the planning. And then we were responsible for, you know, placing staff where they belonged or where they were a best fit. And I was in charge of our autograph rooms. So the first year we had one big convention hall, and we had tables set up where players would come in every hour on the hour, and rotate through, and we'd have huge autograph lines for fans to kind of funnel through and get their autograph. And I think I just wasn't as prepared as I kind of thought I was or hoped I was. And for the first few hours, that autograph room was a disaster. There were people everywhere. People weren't moving fast enough. The transportation to get, you know, the players from point A to point B and into the autograph room wasn't really flowing. We had fan complaints. I already had this player at 10 a.m. and now I'm back for a 1 p.m. slot and it's the same guy. Like, can we move to another line? So I think working through all of that on the fly was really tough for me. And I hadn't ever had to do something like that where it was essentially overstimulation from all ends. And I think trying to come up with plans and working with the rest of my coworkers and colleagues on the spot to try to, you know, spot fix, I guess we can call it, what we could at the moment was really tough. And I think that was probably one of the toughest days in my career where I felt like I had kind of let a lot of people down. And it was fine when you look back and you're like, it worked. It wasn't a well-oiled machine. It was our first year, which I understand. But I think I just felt like I could have done a little better there. But to bounce back, one of the biggest things we did is we sat down, you know, as soon as Winter Weekend was over and kind of did like a post-mortem on the whole thing and how we could change it and what we could do to improve, how I could be better, how our team could be better. And we're kind of able to fine tune some things that way. And then the next year was just so much better. I kind of always look back on that one year.
Yeah. And I hate that feeling when you just completely like bomb something, right?
Yes.
Like you just literally feel like you're walking around and everyone's staring at you and talking about you, right? Like she messed up. She's not worthy. Can't do this again. Like, and that's how I feel when I mess up. Like I just want to crawl into my room and just be like, don't, like, I get it. Like, fire me if you need to. So dramatic, but that's how I feel. 100%. And I'm like, how did you in that moment handle that feeling of like almost, did you feel embarrassed that it wasn't going well? Yeah.
Yes,
how did you handle that?
I was mortified and I felt like everyone could see it on my face. You know what I mean? Like I was trying really hard to hide it and I was probably doing a better job at hiding it than I thought I was.
Sure.
You know, obviously. But yeah, I was so embarrassed. And I felt like anytime anyone from the front office came through to check on the room and saw that it was like this chaos, like it reflected on me. And I was like, how am I going to write this? You know, and I think for me, it was more of the mentality, for better or for worse, of the show must go on. Like I don't have the luxury of crawling into a space and wanting to bawl my eyes out, which is probably what I wanted to do at the time. And I honestly, what I did was there was like a little back room that was called like the magic room. I don't know why, but I think it's because it was like this hidden space between like the walkway where fans could go and then like the entrance into the convention room where like fans weren't allowed. So it was like our little transition room. I went in there. I screamed. I did. I let out a yell. And then I just gave myself 1 minute, I think it was. I was like, I'm going to time myself. I'm going to give myself 1 minute. I let out a yell and then I gave myself a quick pep talk. Like, we're going to do this. There are a bunch of little kids out there that we can still make a difference for that don't know what's going on. And that's what we're going to do. And we're going to be bigger and better for the next time we do this. But for today, we're going to do the best we can. You're going to lean on your team because I think I was also like taking on too much by myself and I had people to help. We're going to use our team and we're going to make it work. And we don't have another option. It was kind of like the little talk I gave myself in that 1 minute, shook it off, came back out. And that's kind of what I did. I talked to the people in the different lines in the rooms to try to help move things a little bit more efficiently. I was communicating with Steph a lot and just giving her kind of like an update on what we were doing. And she helped as well.
Steph, your manager.
And again, Steph, my manager. And she kind of helped get me through it. So it was like a team effort at that point. But it took me a second to kind of reel myself back in and lean more on the fact that we are still making memories and this matters to people and they don't necessarily know that this is a disaster. So I can't let it go super far left because it's not going the way I envisioned, like my version of perfection.
So I imagine you went into this, knowing you very well. I imagine you went into this and you were confident.
Oh my gosh, I had a binder. You know me in binders.
Yep. Yeah. All
I had
right.
a
So you were
binder
feeling
and
good. Your plan was on point. And I mean, you didn't make your plan in a bubble, but like still, you felt
right.
very confident about what you were doing. It bombed. You felt embarrassed, mortified. You gave yourself a pep talk, got through the weekend. And then another big event had to come up. How did you make sure that that wound like fully closed and healed so it didn't impact your future events?
For me, I think doing the postmortem as a team was really big because it helped us pinpoint certain things that we could do better next time. I also made it a point to point out all the things that I did well. I tried not to dwell. I shouldn't say that because for me, it's like near impossible. I dwell for a little while on things when I fail. But I think it was really important for me at the time to point out the things I'd done well and look at, my history of events and realize that this is part of learning and growing and making these mistakes. And I also, me, I took another binder of things that I knew went wrong and suggestions that I had for improving them, and then how I could translate that into other events.
I love it. And then you kept on moving, right? Because like you said, the show must go on. And that was the winter time, which means that the season was starting soon. Spring training season. Yeah. And you don't have time to pity yourself. Like you're right. You get to give yourself like 60 seconds and then move on. Yeah. All right. Are you ready for rapid fire questions?
Oh yeah, let's do it.
12 questions, really easy. First thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
You guys can't see her face right now, but she has like her game face on. She was like, okay,
I got this. Ready. Got
it. All right. What is your favorite sports moment?
13 World Series. David Ortiz hitting the Grand Slam.
What is something people always get wrong about you?
Ooh, what do people get wrong about me? Ooh, sometimes when I'm like really intense, I have like RBF because I don't want to curse on your show. So I think people sometimes think well, sometimes I'm a victim of a resting bitch face. So I think sometimes people will not think I'm super approachable when they first meet me. People that know me know that that's obviously the opposite. But
what is one food you wouldn't want to give up?
I feel like anything that my mom cooks. But if I have to pick one food that I wouldn't give up would be my mom's chicken.
Oh. Are you a morning or a night person?
Night person.
Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Dog or cat person?
Dog.
What, these are going really well. And I'm starting to realize I'm the problem when it comes to these because I'm like pressed for time and I'm like focused. I'm the problem. Okay. What product would you seriously stockpile if you found out they weren't going to sell it anymore?
Oh, so this is new for me. I'm like really into, sorry, I know this is supposed to be rapid, but I have to give the background. So I'm really into clean products and clean ingredients.
Sure.
And Michelle Pfeiffer has a fragrance collection that's like very clean, transparent, and it's called Henry Rose. So if Henry Rose perfumes were ever to go out of production, I would stockpile. I'm really into her Torn fragrance and Queens and Monsters. So I would stockpile those.
Okay. We're definitely linking to that in the show notes. And I'm also going to go check it out.
Yeah. Look into it. It's phenomenal. They smell really good.
What is your favorite app?
Instagram. I say that like, well, I'm like, oh, I spend so much time on Instagram.
I hear you. Same. Who is your biggest inspiration in life?
My mom.
Love it. As a child, what did you want to become when you grew up?
A lawyer.
Oh, that tracks. I can see that for sure.
Yeah. And that's literally what everyone says. Everyone's like, yep, that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. We'll finish this sentence. The future of women working in sports is?
Ooh, bright. I think we're making really good strides. I think we still obviously have a long ways to go, but I think we're on the right path.
Yes. Nina, this has been amazing. If someone wanted to get in touch with you, how could they go about doing that?
I would say LinkedIn, but to be transparent, I'm terrible on LinkedIn. I think like Instagram, I'm really good at checking Instagram since it's my favorite app. I think you guys will link my handle. I can also give you my email and you can post that as well. But yeah, I'm happy to help out anyone that, would like to reach out. I'm available.
Awesome. Thank you, Nina, so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to be a part of this full cast of podcastees. I don't even know if that's a word, but
it is. It is now. It is now. So what did you think of this episode? Do you know another woman who works or is aspiring to work in sports? Would you do me a favor and share this with them? It would mean so much if together we could support and inspire other women on their journey. And let's stay connected. I love meeting and talking to new people. Follow me on Instagram at Jahaan Blake and join the free Game of Her Own community by visiting jahaanblake.com. I can't wait to meet you.